This meeting is being recorded.
Good evening and welcome to the January meeting of ANC 5D. Give us just a moment as we elevate some additional commissioners to panelists, and we'll begin the meeting shortly. If we have our second ASL interpreter on the line, if you could please use the raise hand feature to raise your hand so that we can elevate you to a panelist.
There's two of me because I'm talking on one and seeing you on another one, so.
Okay. Unfortunately, I'm still not seeing our second ASL interpreter. But we do have our live transcripts on. And then I'll just repeat, if you're our second ASL interpreter for the evening, and you could use the raise hand feature to raise your hand so that we can find you and elevate you as a panelist. Okay. Right. And Ms. Moore, I believe you are the second ASL interpreter. Not Commissioner Moore.
A lot of
We have so many more.
I kind of figured you weren't talking to me.
Yes, good evening. I'm sorry, it wasn't allowing me to unmute for a second.
Okay.
I'm going to change my title. Is that okay?
Yes, please do.
Thank you.
Okay, all right, so we're ready to begin now that we have at least our two ASL interpreters available to interpret for folks. Thank you everyone for joining us this evening. I'll go ahead and call the meeting to order and begin our roll call. So 5D01.
Present.
5D02.
Present.
5D03.
I'm here.
All right, 5D04.
Here.
5D05 is myself. 5D06.
Here.
Okay, and 5D07.
Here.
All right, thank you. So we do have a quorum for tonight's meeting. Next up, I'd like to move to adopt the agenda as amended. I do see that we have two additions. One is an alley closure at 1728 Montello Avenue, and the other is a traffic calming on Montello Avenue. And I just have to say, it was my fault that the traffic calming was not previously added for notice. So I do want the neighbors who were looking for that from Commissioner Cobb to know that he did submit it in a timely fashion. We just had an administrative oversight, but it's now added. So I move to, first of all, any additions from the other commissioners with those, besides those two additions that were mentioned? Any additional changes at all? Okay, so I move to accept the agenda as presented with those two additions. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you. Adoption of the minutes. I don't see where we have pre-circulated minutes. So what we'll do is table that item for next month's meeting. And then we will adopt minutes for December and January come February's meeting. And we are making some administrative changes in the background. As you know, we hired new administrative help in December. And so we're making that transition right now. Next up, we have the treasurer's report. And let's hear that from you, Commissioner Cobb.
Okay, for January, we started with a balance of $66,792.30. We had no allocations or income. We had one expense to our ABRA attorneys of $9,672.35, which gave us a closing balance at the end of last month of $57,119.95. And the end of last year was also the end of the first quarter for fiscal year 2022. So we started with a balance last quarter of $77,412.95. We had allotments of about $1,300 and expenses of $21,645.21, which gave us a closing balance of $57,119.95.
Right, well, thank you for that. And any questions from any of the commissioners regarding just the treasurer's report before we go to the quarterly reports? Okay. All right, and then Commissioner Cobb, quarterly reports.
I went through the last month, or the last quarter. Do you want me to go through the two previous ones?
Just the ones we need to approve. So if you want to make a motion on any updates or approvals.
Okay, sure. For the last two quarters of fiscal year 2021, which covered, I believe that was the time before us or right at the beginning of our time as commissioners. We're still working out some issues that we've had with the books going back a couple years. So those have been slightly adjusted each quarterly report. It's just a few dollars for each one, no substantial changes.
Okay, all right. And then for this current quarterly report, do you want to make a motion that we accept that report? I know that there were some changes in the recent weeks.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, sure. I move that we adopt the FY22 Q1 report as it stands now. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right. All in favor?
Aye.
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 All right, and the ayes have it. Thanks.
Okay. All right, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And then just a note to folks following along at home, we are going to have an update to the website pending for those who are trying to follow the agenda online. It's just taking a bit to load, so just hang tight. Next up on our agenda, as you know, it's January. Happy New Year, everyone. We're glad you're back with us. And we have to do officers elections and some schedule and housekeeping items each January to keep on the good side of the law at ANC 5D. And so first up, we'll have our officers elections, which happen annually. That we go through and elect officers, and that would be the chairperson, the vice-chairperson, the treasurer, and the secretary. And we are required to have those positions. So first up, we'll open the floor to any nominations, including self-nominations for the position of secretary.
I nominate myself for secretary.
I
Sabrina
second,
Cobb.
I second your self-nomination for secretary. Any other nominations for secretary while the floor is still open? Okay. All right, and all in favor of Commissioner Sabrina Rev'd serving as ANC 5D secretary for 2022? Can I get an aye?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you. For treasurer, I'd like to open the floor to nominations.
And I'll go ahead and nominate myself.
I second your renomination. Thank you for all the hard work you've been doing in 2021, including revisiting other people's work. So thank you for that. All in favor of Commissioner Cobb continuing as the treasurer?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any objections? Any abstentions? Sorry. Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you, Commissioner Cobb. Vice-Chairperson, I'd like to open the floor to Vice-Chairperson. And this is one of those roles that it's not necessarily self-explanatory. So basically the Vice-Chairperson takes over in case of the incapacity or missing a meeting. Anything should happen where the chairperson is not available, and they're also assignee on our accounts when we need to pay our staff, et cetera. So I open the floor to nominations for the Vice-Chairperson.
Nominate myself.
And I second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you. And then I open the floor to nominations for my own position as the chairperson. And basically I preside over the meetings, make sure that we have an agenda over which to preside, and coordinate other activities on behalf of the commission, including the signature role for our accounts, et cetera, that the vice chairperson also conducts. So I'll just keep it up to date with the latest fashion and nominate myself for the role of chairperson. But anyone else is also welcome to nominate themselves or someone else.
You can move to the motion.
So let me get a second.
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 Okay, and all in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, well, thank you all for very smooth elections. A lot of people could learn a lot from how we handle elections.
All right.
Next up on our agenda is an agreement to participate in the ANC Security Fund, and that's a $25 fee. Basically, what that means is that we participate in a fund operated by the city to protect the money that we have in our bank account against malfeasance should we have any of the issues that have occurred in real life in the past where there have been embezzlement or other illegal activities that deplete our funds, so that we could continue to operate and pay our staff. It doesn't replace all of the money in your account should something like that happen, but it does replace just enough money should something occur for you to be able to continue to pay your staff and to handle normal business operations for the ANC. So for $25, I think that is a very sensible thing to participate in. And so I move that we participate in the ANC Security Fund. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. And then we have the adoption of our annual meeting schedule. Right now, ANC 5D meets every month except for our summer recess of July and August. That does not mean that we can't meet in those months. We could hold an emergency meeting in those months if something were to take place. But by and large, the commissions that we advise are not active at that time. And so us sending them advice during that time from a public meeting is not something that's necessary. And it gives us a chance to work on other projects and activities in the neighborhood over the summer with our constituents. So I move to maintain that current schedule of meeting on the second Tuesday of each month at 7 p.m. With the exception of our summer recess in July and August. Can I get a second?
Second.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it. Thank you so much. So that's it for our annual business. Thank you all so much for that going smoothly, which has not always been the case at ANC 5D. So thank you for that. And then we'll go ahead and move forward to our standing presentations as usual. I did see Captain Merrill on the line from MPD to give us our public safety report. And then once we hear from Captain Merrill and any questions the public might have for him, we'll hear from the mayor's office, followed by the Ward 5 council member's office. So the floor is yours, Captain Merrill.
Good evening, Commissioner. Good to see you again.
Good evening.
Good evening, good evening. Just wanted to let you guys know, we had on the 29th, we had 4 good robbery arrests in reference to the renovation homes that were being robbed and the construction workers that were being robbed. So hopefully that'll bring down those robberies and burglaries we were getting in those homes, and especially those construction workers. So there were 4 very good arrests. Unfortunately, they were juveniles, but you know, that seems to be a pattern here in the city. So the last 30 days, we've had 9 assault with deadly weapons. Most of those have occurred in Starburst Plaza and at 19th and Benning. That's usually involving intoxicated persons, and it's usually involving a knife. We had 12 robberies. Again, I think that was indicative of the robbery sprees that we were seeing that were taking place. But hopefully those arrests will bring those numbers down. The next month will be better than 12. And we had 10 burglaries. Again, those were homes that were being renovated. So hopefully next month we'll have those numbers down as well. We had 27 theft from autos. Again, theft from autos is almost purely a crime of opportunity. So I just remind everyone, please remember not to keep any valuables. Those numbers usually do go up during the Christmas season because people do leave packages and stuff like that in the car. So hopefully next month, those numbers will come down as well. That's all I have. If anyone have any questions, I'm open for them.
So before we go to questions from the public, I just want to comment on the fights that have been breaking out at 19th and Benning with the intoxicated individuals. We did, as a commission, vote unanimously to bring an ABRA case in that instance, because we are having a lot of issues at that location, with folks, basically getting a beer and hanging out, outside of the store. And then they get into arguments that escalate into knife fights or sometimes shootings. And so that is a very scary pattern that we're all aware of. Unfortunately, the city has not decided to take action at this time. But I do want folks to know through the normal ABRA process, they've decided not to take action. But I do want folks to know that we're continuing to work with those establishments to add additional security cameras, to add fencing, to do a better job of the placement of their dumpster so that it's not creating those types of hiding spots. And that we're also working with the council member's office in those instances where the stores are not being cooperative, which has been an issue. Steps can be taken to restrict single sales because we are seeing that as an issue in this instance. You know, you have one side of Benning Road that is currently operating under that restriction. And then on the opposite side of the street, we've got people who don't even live in this neighborhood, but live in the Ward 6 and Ward 7 side of Benning, you know, coming over and bringing that type of violence, or from Maryland, just because of that gap in the law. And so we'll be working with the council member's office to try to help that situation. And so, you know, I don't know if you have any additional comments regarding that, Captain Mira. I know that that's something where you've been supportive.
Yes, and I would just ask as commissioners, if you guys can maybe push the councilman. I know they got rid of the loitering laws in the city, which, you know, I understand, but maybe they can, you know, put a caveat in the law, like you can't hang out within 500 feet of a liquor store or something like that. That'll be beneficial for us. That'll help as well. I know they don't want to, you know, the loitering and the police messing with people. I get all of that, but you know, loitering in front of a liquor store is something that I think can be worked out and compromised.
Yeah, we're having bar fights on the sidewalk, you know,
Right.
So that's a problem. Yeah. But thank you for that. So I'll move to questions from the commissioners and then questions from the public. Any other questions or comments from commissioners?
Yes, I have a question, Captain Mira. Will you be able to let us know how many additional guns have been taken off the streets since Chief Conti did a presentation at the smokehouse right before the holidays? And also, are we still gonna continue to have police presence in the Ivy City area because of the recent shootings?
Absolutely. When do you want to know the gun numbers for 5D or for the city, or over there in your ANC commission area? Is that what you're looking for?
Whatever information you can provide will be great.
Well, I can tell
my area, if you can start with my area and then the 5D area, that'd be fine.
Well, I know over the year, I mean, for the entire year, we recovered 237 guns. In your area, I'm not exactly sure of the exact numbers in Ivy City that we recovered. But I know since Chief Conti's thing at the smokehouse, we've recovered about 22 or 23 guns since then. So we've been moving. But a lot of those gun recoveries have been also because of the club reopenings, the Bliss nightclubs and all of that. Those nightclubs have, especially when they have like the concerts with the rappers per se and stuff like that, we've recovered a lot of firearms during those nights. But I can get those numbers for your ANC 501. I can get those numbers to you later on, though.
Okay, thanks.
No problem.
Okay, and then any other questions or comments from commissioners before we move to public questions? Okay, all right, so let's move to questions from the public. And for those folks on the phone, you can dial *9 to use the raise hand feature if you're joining us from the phone to raise your hand. All right, so the Q&A, Josh Kramer, can we have a link to the agenda, please? So if you go to our website and refresh, you should have an agenda available to you as soon as the site can refresh. It should be posted now. Skip Keats, very happy to hear that a person has been arrested for the break-ins at buildings under construction. Was this person who stabbed one of the workers at the building on 18th Street Northeast?
Was he one of the people arrested?
Was this
he one of the
person involved
suspects?
in that stabbing? Yes.
Yeah,
Was the
from
person
18th
who was
Street.
arrested? Yes.
Yeah, the detectives haven't informed me, so I don't know. But there's been a lot of robberies and burglaries since then, so they're just working backwards on those cases. So if they do get a positive on that, then they'll let me know. But they've already closed out dozens of robberies already. But I don't remember seeing 18th Street as one of the ones that were closed out.
Okay. So we'll leave that with you for a follow-up. And if you just want to let me know, I can add that to the newsletter if it turns out that there was an arrest made in that case.
Sure.
Okay. Patrice Lancaster, what is the plan for coverage on Mount Olivet Road?
As far as police coverage is,
Okay, and then I see a follow-up here. Is there collaboration with CURE to have them on Mount Olivet Road? And I think this is in regards to some of the incidents around the schools, and Ms. Lancaster, tell me if that's right.
yeah, I believe Cure the Streets is on Mount Olivet. I believe they have an office on Mount Olivet.
Mhm.
But we have been working closer with KIP in reference to the students. We just had another threat last night in reference to KIP. So that's an ongoing thing. But we're definitely working with the schools there, their school security, the resource officers and the staff at KIP. But Cure is, as far as I know, they're still part of the equation.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. And then let me go to see if I see any raised hands in the audience. Okay, Stephen Jerry. You should be able to talk. Stephen Jerry, yeah.
Yes, I'm here. Hello.
We can hear you, go for it.
Great. I'm just curious about we have a corner spot in our neighborhood. It's the intersection of Neal and Orange Street. And it sort of, got pretty active over the pandemic, and we've been kind of patient about it, but we're getting a little fed up with just the public nuisance element. And we're curious, if that's on the police radar, what can we do, that type of stuff.
Yeah, Orange and Neal, that was the issue, especially over the summer. We had officers just at that location. Unfortunately, we were working with one of the owners of the building on that corner. As far as the loitering, we had the issue with this the summertime. There's no loitering law in the District of Columbia, so it was tough for us as far as them just hanging out. And also,
sure. What about gambling? Is there a?
Yeah, we make gambling arrests, we make drug arrests, we make alcohol arrests. It's just because of COVID, there's no appetite for those prosecutions. So when we make those arrests, they're usually back out within 3 hours. So no one is really being held in the District of Columbia unless you pretty much commit a murder. So due to COVID, people are just getting right back out, and there's no real appetite for those prosecutions, but we continue to make arrests.
Is that something that you get back from prosecutors, just that it's not going to go anywhere, or?
Yeah, yep. The U.S. Attorney's Office, if they were on this, they would let you know that because of COVID, they've scaled back greatly as far as their prosecutions go. So it's been tough on us. We'll continue to do our job. We continue to make the arrest, but like I said, they're usually back out within 3 hours. They're usually back out by the time we're done with their arrest paperwork.
It's a pretty well-established spot. There isn't, more case to be made.
Yeah, no, I did. We went over this. We had, I believe, Commissioner Hoffman. That was one of his things this summer. So that was something that we were definitely dealing with.
Mr. Jerry, have you seen any uptick in the activity? I know that I've been in contact with a lot of the neighbors right there at that corner about it has subsided at least a little bit. That might be due to the weather.
Yeah,
But-
with the cold. I sort of figured it'd cool off after, COVID relaxed a bit, but that, enough's enough. It's been a couple of years. So, I've been here a decade.
We'll continue to make those arrests though, Mr. Jerry. And if you see activity tick up or something like that, please let me know, and we'll definitely go out there and readdress it.
All right, thank you for that. And then we'll move to our final question, which comes from our previous chairperson, Clarence Lee, says, what is the status of the KIP student homicide? And I know there have been several homicides. I believe one was closed, and then we're still waiting for more information. I believe is his question regarding the most recent incident.
The KIP student that was, you talking about the one that passed away while he was in the hospital? They took him off the life support.
Well, there was one that was stabbed by another student, and then there was a separate incident. So I believe he's asking about the separate incident.
Yeah, I'm not, we're still investigating that case. I don't think we've made any closures as far as that goes. But our detectives, they've been working really hard on those cases. So I'm sure they're making substantial progress. But once they do have a break in the case, they'll let me know, and then I'll let you guys know.
Okay, all right. Well, we'll be on the lookout for additional information there.
Okay.
So that is our final public safety question for the evening. I really appreciate your time this evening, Captain Merrill, and we look forward to having you back next month.
Thank you, Commissioner. Always a pleasure.
Thank you. Now we have Nokomis Hunter on the line from the mayor's office, and this is my second time seeing you today, Mr. Hunter.
Chris Bay, can you bring him on as a panelist?
He's our other new moker.
Yeah. I guess you just want to, come in and introduce yourself very briefly.
Okay. And give me just a moment here to find him.
Okay.
Okay. All right. And he should be a panelist now.
Okay. So I give my brief update, and I'll pass it over to Chris if he has anything that he want to add. Happy New Year to everyone. Good to see everyone here. Want to begin my update with the coronavirus daily matrix, which can be found on coronavirus.dc.gov/reopening matrix. It is listed that 79% of DC residents are either partially or fully vaccinated, and almost 98.5% of DC residents who are 65 and older has been vaccinated. I want to let you guys know that it's still critical that all eligible people are getting vaccinated and getting their booster shot as transmission is increased. Unvaccinated people are still being hospitalized and dying at a staggering rate compared to vaccinated people. So for all the 65 and older, our senior people, you are more than welcome to, move to the front of the line of a district operating walk-up vaccination site for Ward 5 to pick up your rapid test. Our location will be Woodruff Library. I know a lot of people might be disencouraged by sending a long line, but don't be disencouraged. The line pretty move very quickly, so you might either see me or my partner Chris there help operating the line. We have a lot of people that try to get their test that's Maryland resident or VA resident. There's a lot of confusion of people, trying to come and, get tested for their spouses or, any adult that's there in a household. But to be mindful that that person must be there present to get their test. No one can get their test kicked for someone else. There is 2 tests in each box, so you will be getting 4 total. To move on, as it was announced today on a DMPED town hall meeting that beginning Saturday, January 15th, there will be certain establishments that will be required to verify residents between age 12 and older that must have received at least 1 dose of the COVID-19 vaccine shot. That's for January 15, and for February 15, it will require for residents 12 and older to have both of their shots. So proof of vaccination will be required at restaurants, bars, nightclubs, indoor cultural and entertainment facilities, indoor exercise, recreation facility, indoor event and meeting establishment. And the place that will not be required is like church, museum, and grocery store. And for the senior rapid test pickup site, there has been I believe, yeah, there are six locations over across the district where students could go pick up the rapid test. For Ward 5, we have our location 1901 Evart Street Northeast, where our students can go pick up their vaccination shot, which is, I'm sorry, their rapid test, which is Monday, Wednesday, and Friday from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m. And that would be, yeah, that would be all of my update for right now. Chris, do you have anything that you would like to add on?
Yes, I would just like to add on, just introduce myself. Thank y'all guys for having me. And my name is Christopher Ingram. I'm the new Ward 5 Moker. And I was on the walk today with Commissioner Moore. And I want to say thank you, Ms. Moore, again for just letting me come be a part of your team. And if you guys, I'm gonna drop my information in the chat. So if you guys have any issues or any concerns that y'all having problems with, feel free to reach out to me so we could get this issues or concerns on the road. And I'm here to serve. So feel free to just reach out to me with any issues or any concerns. And I do community walks on my own Tuesdays and Thursdays. So if you guys have an issue that you wanted me to walk through the neighborhood, we could walk through the neighborhood together and point out the issues as well.
And thank you for that. I really appreciate it. Nokomis, Mr. Hunter, did you have anything else you were gonna add before we go to commissioner comments and questions?
That would be all.
Okay. Well, I just want to thank you guys for coming out today for the walkthrough. Basically, if you're in my area, you know we've been having issues with DPW, and it's just been a real ongoing challenge for us, and also issues with rats. I realize they're having some staffing issues that are being exacerbated due to COVID. But I do think that we need to get to a place where we can get honest and accurate information from them about the status of service requests, so that we can get them completed in a timely fashion. And let's limit the excuses and get the work done. And so I appreciate you guys helping in terms of making sure that there's some accountability there. And as some of the neighbors will see, several of the alleys were cleaned this morning in anticipation of the Moker showing up. So if nothing else, calling the mayor's office to say they'll be walking through motivates some people to do a bit of cleaning before they show up. So I know a lot of you guys noticed that.
Sounds like we gotta call them more often and come walk around.
Right, exactly. And it's a shame you have to do that to get your stuff. Commissioners, anything where we go to questions or comments from the
I don't
public?
have anything to add, but Nokomis, you had said that there's something on Evart Street. Is that something other than what's happening at Woodbridge Library? Because I was confused of what you were saying.
Yeah, so the site that I listed for 1901 Evart Street Northeast is specifically for the senior, which is the Model City Senior Wellness Center. So that site is just specifically for residents 65 and older. And one for the Woodbridge Library is basically for general population.
Also, with the establishments that have to go abide by this rule, who is enforcing it? Because no one is enforcing none of this stuff at any of these businesses. Who will be enforcing the mandates?
The businesses themselves will be enforcing. So we will be doing a canvassing this Thursday, making sure that everyone has the flyer that they can put in front of their storefront to let the resident know that you must have your vaccination card to enter into the establishment.
But it's the businesses, some of the businesses don't even, they don't participate. They don't do anything. They don't enforce the mandate themselves.
So I believe there is, so this is when you can report that to DC Health. I'm gonna find an email. Where you can I don't have the email in mind or anything like that, but I know there's a point of contact that you can reach out to and report a business that's not enforcing.
Thank you.
All right, and then any other questions or comments from commissioners? Okay, and just a reminder for the public, when you have questions, if you could put them in the Q&A box rather than the chat. And remember that those of you listening in on the phone line can use *9 to raise and lower your hand when you have questions so that you can participate as well. First Q&A from the public, Matal Lyons Warren. I called the COVID line about tests because the Trinidad Rec Center has been closed when I have come by for a PCR test to take it home and drop off. The person on the phone said it should be open, but it wasn't again. Any update on them opening up and having tests? And that's the Trinidad Rec Center.
And I would just like to jump in here and say that the exact same thing happened to me a couple of weeks ago as well.
Yeah.
Okay. That I don't have update on the Trinidad location. I will have to circle back around to you on that one.
My
Okay,
current understanding with the, I'm sorry to cut you off, Commissioner. My current understanding with the Trinidad Rec Center is that they're short-staffed, and there's been some issues where they're not getting the proper resources and funding to protect themselves from COVID. So they're getting a lot of people coming in with these tests, but they're not really getting the resources to actually protect themselves from individuals that might be sick, bringing in these tests. So I spoke to them a few weeks ago. They were having those issues. They might be closed because they're just low staffed, but I'll follow up with the DC Rec point of contact for that one.
Okay, thank you for that. And if you could just, Mr. Erner, if you could just follow up and let us know anything that you have on that as well.
Okay.
Next question from Skip Keats. Where can one pick up rapid tests? And I know you're writing down, but I'll just say you can check out the mayor's coronavirus website and they'll update you on test locations. Okay, and then let me just check here to see if we have any raised hands. Okay, we do have a few folks on the line. So let's start here. Miss Diggs, you should be able to unmute yourself and talk.
Good evening. So I just wanted to say that myself and Commissioner Moore actually went to Woodbridge Library Saturday before last, and not only were they closed, they had stated on the door that they ran out of tests. So as a side note, on Thursday, the Senior Wellness Center, which is actually in Ward 6, but it's actually closer to some of us in Ward 5, is going to distribute tests to seniors from 1 p.m. to 3 p.m.
Okay, good to know. Thank you for sharing that. Okay, and then next up, and I'm going to call out the last digits of your phone number, which is 751. And if you could tell us your name. 751, last 3 digits of the phone number, 751.
You can unmute yourself.
And you have to unmute if you're muted. Okay, last chance for 751. Okay, all right, and then we'll move forward and let's hear from last digits of the phone number 084, and just make sure you're unmuted. You can unmute yourself and talk. And if you could just tell us your name, last 3 phone numbers 084.
Isn't it a star something they have to press in order to be
They
able to
did
speak?
in order to raise their hand, and
Oh,
then now. Okay. All right, well, we'll move forward and we'll try to work on that if there's something that we're doing, but we could hear Miss Diggs who was on the phone. Okay, so thank you so much, Mr. Hunter. We really appreciate having you.
No problem. Thank you all.
All right, and Mr. Ingram, welcome to the team. All right, next up, we have the Ward 5 Council Members Office. I don't see Silas Grant on the line. But if you're here and you're just in the audience instead of as a panelist, if you'll just, I see you now. All right, give me just a moment. I'm gonna update Mr. Grant's status. Okay. And then Mr. Grant, you'll become a panelist, and whenever you're ready, you can go ahead and unmute yourself.
Good evening, everyone. I hope you all can hear me. Can you all hear me?
Yeah.
Yes.
Happy New Year to the entire ANC 5D, the commissioners, and also the residents who are in attendance. I am Silas Grant, Senior Advisor in the Ward 5 Council Office, and I'm here to present on behalf of the Council Office at this meeting for 5D in January. First, I want to start by thanking the commissioners and the residents who were extremely supportive of our office's efforts to maintain the current boundaries for the ward as we went through the ward-wide redistricting process. As some of you may know, and some may not know, there was a threat to our current boundaries, and there were portions of Ward 5 that were scheduled to be moved to other wards. And quite frankly, it was unnecessary. And I went through the details at the previous meeting here. But we were able to advocate the council, and we were able to have an amendment put on the agenda to maintain the boundaries, and that agenda item, that amendment passed in our favor. And so now we're at the process, the point in the process where we are considering the ANC maps within the ward boundaries. And so you all will be hearing communications from our office very, very shortly about the ANC process in terms of the redistricting maps at the ANC level. And so again, thank you all for your participation and advocacy thus far. And we're looking forward to working with you all as we move into this next phase. Also wanted to say really quickly, look forward to hearing from us really soon with respect to the budget process for fiscal year 2023. We will be putting together some opportunities for you all to be engaged in the budget process. Obviously, the performance oversight hearings and the budget oversight hearings, but along with that, we'll be having a budget survey that will be going out to the entire ward to get feedback on a number of topics. And that survey and the results from it will help inform the council member as he puts together his budget priorities list to be sent to the mayor. So again, you should be hearing from us really, really soon in terms of us disseminating a survey to get feedback. I believe last year we had about a little less than 1,100 responses throughout the ward. So we're trying to grow that even higher in this cycle for fiscal year 2023. The last thing I want to note is that on January 4th, Councilmember McDuffie led the way as the council unanimously passed legislation that amends grant-making authority for DMPED, the Deputy Mayor's Office for Planning and Economic Development, to allow them to administer small business grants for COVID-19 relief. The amendment clarified the $40 million placed in DMPED's budget to allow them to support the reopening, the recovery, and the long-term viability of our small businesses operating in the restaurant, retail, hospitality, and entertainment sectors. In those spaces, we've seen revenue decline. we've seen costs increase and we've seen financial loss as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. And so this $40 million aimed at helping this sector can be used for a number of items in terms of outstanding rent, payroll, labor, inventory, and operating expenses. And so this is for district-based small businesses that gross less than $5 million in the previous 3 fiscal years, 2019, 20, and 21. Again, this is the council members' effort to support these businesses, understanding that COVID-19 has really impacted them negatively. And so we want to be able to be supportive for the small businesses. You know, as we always say, the folks who run small businesses are folks like you and I. They're everyday people, and we want to make sure that we are supporting them to the extent that we can. So with that, Chairperson Moore, I will give it back to you if there are any questions.
Okay, so first up, we'll start with questions and comments from the commissioners, and then we'll move to public questions. If the public could use the Q&A box if you're joining us via Zoom. And if you have a question and you're on the line, if you could use *9 to raise your hand. And then when we get to you, I think this will answer the issue some people were having. And if you're having difficulty unmuting, use *6. So let's start with the commissioners before we move to the public. Anything from
Can I ask a question really quickly? I'm sorry.
Yes, go ahead.
It escaped my mind. I saw earlier online that there was going to be an agenda item about some biking infrastructure. Is that still on your agenda for tonight?
I believe that there is an infrastructure item, but I think it's more about speed reduction, and that's part of it. Commissioner Cobb?
Okay.
Yeah, there is a section that asks for a contraflow bike lane painted on a couple streets, but the letter is more about asking for several pieces of infrastructure to slow traffic on Montello and Trinidad Avenues.
Okay, yeah, I saw it online. I just didn't see it on the agenda, or maybe I overlooked it. Oh, you know, I see it now. Traffic calming. I'm sorry. My apologies.
All right, and then anything, comments or questions for Mr. Grant from the commissioners? Okay, and then let's move to the public. I don't see anything in the Q&A box, and I don't see any raised hands on the phone. All right, so I guess that was pretty clear, Mr. Grant. Thank you so much for your updates.
You're welcome. Thank you all. And I'm going to hang around for those items with the letters and so forth.
Okay, great. Have a good evening.
All right.
Next on our agenda from DDOT, we have Dalando Baker. And Mr. Baker, I did see that you were on the line. So let's make sure you are.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, great. I will turn my video on. Am I able to share my screen?
We'll give you that permission right now.
Okay.
Okay. All right, and you should be able to share your screen whenever you're ready.
All right, are you guys able to see this?
Yes.
Okay.
Hi, this is a sign language interpreter. Can you pin myself as well?
Definitely. Give me just
Thank
one moment
you.
here. And if you'll be the interpreter throughout this presentation, that would be helpful. Okay, perfect.
All right. So I am speaking on behalf of DDOT. We just wanted to share some updates with you all on our TSI traffic safety investigation process. The goal of this basically is to just be a lot more concise with the process with residents, filing requests, and holding some accountability for DDOT, as well as tracking the progress of whatever safety concerns have been submitted. So it's a 3-step process here, actually 5, but the first 3 go in a certain time order, so I'll cover those. Residents are to contact DC, residents are supposed to go to 311.dc.gov, submit a traffic safety investigation. It will be under TSI, or it will directly state traffic safety investigation. So the components here that are important, when you include whatever the concern is, having clear and concise information on the location, whether that's a direct address or an intersection, is very helpful. And also what I would encourage is just directly stating whatever the concern is versus requesting whatever suggestion you have from DDOT. So if it is a a safety measure around speeding, instead of saying, hey, we would like speed humps at this location, just give the on the form, just be very detailed as to whatever the concern is that you have for that location. And the engineers at DDOT will determine, whatever safety measures are needed at that intersection to move forward. Next, DDOT will evaluate whatever service request you have submitted. And then lastly, we'll communicate the findings with you all. So this process can take up to 130 business days. It's not necessarily guaranteed to take that long. I've seen some service requests take a little shorter of a time. It all really just depends on whatever the concern is. But DDOT does have up until 130 business days to complete that, the research that needs to be done on whatever that traffic concern is, and then moving forward from there. If we are recommending any changes or additional safety measures, DDOT will submit a notice of intent within 30 business days. And we'll typically send that to the commissioners, and they will pass that down to residents. The notice of intent really is to engage the community and basically get your feedback. If we're recommending, let's say we're recommending a speed hump or a stop sign, we want to know from residents if we actually think that, those suggestions are beneficial for that area. And then lastly, we'll do the installation. So when you do the service request, we'll go through the 130-day process. DDOT will determine whether or not there are safety measures that need to be provided at that location. Then after that is done, we will provide you with, we'll close out the service request and we'll open up a work order. You will receive updates on that process via email. So if they close out your service request, you may get an email that says, hey, we closed out that service request, but make sure you check the comment section and it'll say why we've closed it. And typically that will entail something of the likes of, we've closed this service request and we're opening up a work order and we're going to do X, Y, and Z. And if you go onto the website and you check the status of that work order that will be listed in the email to you, it will also show the installation date of whatever safety measures DDOT will be doing at that location. So again, this is the one pager from DDOT, the traffic safety investigation process. So anytime there is any concerns, safety concerns in your neighborhood, the first step is to go through that process, going to 311.dc.gov and submitting a service request. There is no other way moving forward for DDOT to take a look at concerns from residents unless that process starts with the 311 service request. I think that's all that I have, unless there's any questions.
So just a reminder to those in the audience, if you could use the Q&A box to make sure that your questions are in the queue, or dial *9 for those folks who are on the phone so that we can, make sure to include you that way. Let's first have questions or comments from our commissioners. Anything from the commissioners before we move to the public?
Yes.
Commissioner Rhodes? Okay, so first we'll do, so we're gonna do it in the order of how I saw it. So we'll do Commissioner Rhodes, Commissioner Cobb, Commissioner Blacknell, and then Commissioner Moore. Okay, Rhodes, Cobb, Blacknell, Moore, go. Commissioner Rhodes.
Yes, Dalando. We have an issue with removing some flexi posts on Mount Olivet, on West Virginia Avenue for a resident to be able to get in their transportation. What is, do you have any update with that? Because that was supposed to have been done and it hasn't. So do we have to put in a 311 request in order to have that done and wait these days? Also, do we have to put in a 311 request to have special signage so that the resident is safe getting into vehicles?
Okay, for your first question, you said that the work was supposed to be done. So was there a service request submitted, or like I'm not really sure on the background? How do you know the work was? Who informed you? Was that internally with DDOT or?
There was some flexi posts that was supposed to be removed so that the resident can get into their transportation.
Right.
On West Virginia, only 2 was removed, and there's another one that needs to be removed in order for the vehicle to be able to get into the parking space properly, and that wasn't done. And I'm asking, how long is it going to take before that gets done, before that third flexi post is removed? And can we get signage stating for the bikers and the drivers that this is a specific parking space, and that the resident needs to have that respect? I'm just putting it in that language.
I totally understand.
Mm-hmm.
I just don't know the background specifically on that issue. I don't know who have you been in contact with at DDOT? I'm kind of trying to find the tracking pattern.
Greg McLesky and Caesar. I'm not sure of Caesar's last name, but this is something that we have been talking about getting done for months, and it's not being done. And we need some signage, some striping, and another flexi post removed so that the resident will be able to get into the vehicle properly.
Got it.
And
Okay,
safely.
so I think to spearhead getting those issues concerned, I would recommend you do a 311 request separately for each item. If you have, I'll post my contact information in the chat as well. If you have more information, like maybe an email thread or something regarding some of these concerns, you're free to forward it to me, and that might be helpful. But definitely I would recommend a 311 service request, especially for anything that you haven't had a conversation with DDOT prior to. So like the signage and things like that, that'll need to require a 311 service request. The flexi post, if there has already been removal, I'm not sure if there's already an open service request or an open work order for that. But again, if you have a email history or some kind of point of contact, I'll post my contact in there and you can shoot me that information and I can follow up then, because I'll be completely transparent. I'm not really fully aware of this specific, issue.
Dalando, are you taking Kelly Joan Olson's place?
Correct.
Okay, so her name is in the email thread, and I'm sure you have the email thread that has been going through for months now.
Well, I actually just started
all last year.
I just started with DDOT, but what I will do is I'll send my email in this chat again, and if you have that email thread, you can forward it to me.
Yeah. Okay.
Thank you.
And then also Marika Tapp might be actually the person who was on that thread because Kelly was out.
Mm-hmm. She was.
Then let me make sure I got my order right. Commissioner Cobb, you're next up.
Thanks, Commissioner. So just for clarification, when a requester submits a TSI, say DDOT decides that no action is needed and closes the TSI request, is there anything that the requester can do from there? Any sort of recourse?
I'm glad you asked this question. This came up, I believe, in an email thread maybe a week ago. There's no formal way to contest. What I would recommend if DDOT has declined whatever safety measure is recommended by the resident, to honestly, it'd probably be me to just work directly with me. You can always CC Kelly or someone else on the issue. If there is revolving or recurring safety issues, whatever that complaint was initially, to just reach out to us and just say, hey, let's say there's a four-way and traffic is not stopping at that four-way. Maybe sending pictures or anything like that, or just kind of keeping an activity thread. What will typically happen is it'll get elevated. So like, let's say I've received 5 emails or 5 to 10 emails from residents about a TSI that has already been closed, but the same concern at the same intersection. I'll then elevate that up to management and say, hey, I know we closed this service request, but this clearly is, there needs to be more eyes on this issue because I continue to receive resident complaints about this intersection. But to answer your question, there is no formal process with that.
Yeah. And I'll just make a quick comment as to what I'd like to see as the chairperson. If you're a resident and you file a TSI, it's denied, please get in touch with your ANC commissioner so that they can be in the loop on the issue, help coordinate that conversation with DDOT, and let our transportation committee know. Because that's one of the things now that we do have a transportation committee, ta-da, see if this is how it works in your favor. They can help track those issues on an ongoing basis, and we can recognize patterns and help to address it in a more consistent way. So next up, Commissioner Blacknell.
Yes, good evening. I have a concern. Back in October, I know you probably received a long list in reference to these speed humps. Okay, I have 2 areas in my SMD. I'm the ANC commissioner for 5D04. I have 2 areas since October the 21st. The signs are up, but the speed humps are not there. And one of them is directly outside of my door, 2114 I Street, and the 700 block of 21st Street, which is in Langston. I've been holding off, trying to, give you the benefit of the doubt. I know, it's COVID and everything going on, but like I said, it's been since October the 21st. In these 2 spots, just like I said, the signs are up, but the speed humps are not actually down.
Okay, and I'm assuming because the signs have been installed that there was a service request made and they just didn't complete the work. Is that what I'm understanding?
Yes, and it has not been done since October the 21st. I stood outside of my door and watched them put the speed hump sign up. I walked my area the same day. The 700 block of 21st Street, that's down in Langston. Speed hump are not there. The signs are there, but the speed hump is not actually there. Okay. The marking is there where it's supposed to go and everything, but it's not there.
Right, the work just didn't get completed. You do have the service request numbers for
I don't have them on me, but it was a long list.
Okay.
A long list.
Okay, that list would be helpful to me so that I can follow up. So what typically happens, so I'll put my contact information in the chat. What I would do, so if I receive a personal email or Commissioner Moore or any of the other commissioners contact me via email, I will reach out to whether that's my manager or typically it's engineers. And they are, assigned to different locations and different projects. And I'll chime in with them. And the process typically is just, hey, what's the status update on this? Because I'm assuming that with that service request, it is still open and the work is pending. Or the service request, would be closed. They opened a work order for that location and that work order is probably pending. And the install for the speed humps hasn't been done. But what I can possibly do is provide an update for you as to why the speed humps haven't been updated or when they will do it. Some kind of timeline so that you have an expectation of when to see them come out and have that done.
And then just a quick comment here before we move forward on this. We do have a tracker. So Commissioner Blacknell, I'll get together with you and make sure that we add a comment in our tracker as to the status of those items so that we can have it all organized in one place. It's easier for him to follow up.
Great.
Okay.
So Commissioner
Okay.
Moore, you're gonna send me that,
Yes,
right?
definitely.
Okay,
definitely.
awesome. That would be great. That would be very helpful. And I'm even more also willing to, whatever's on that tracker, schedule a meeting with just the ANC commissioners and kind of go over a few of those if that is easier as well.
Okay, and that'll be coming from Commissioner Cobb if it hasn't already. I believe he may have already sent it.
Okay.
But check, it'll be coming directly from him because he's our.
I believe I did. I think I do have a list.
Okay, okay, good.
So I'll be in
and
touch.
then-
Sorry to interrupt you.
Go ahead.
I'll be in touch and hopefully sometime next week we can schedule. I think it'll be more effective maybe to schedule a meeting to kind of go through the items and give you updates, because depending on the concern, it may be lengthy and email for us to go back and forth.
Yeah, and you'll have access to edit the tracker. So if you want to put the updates there, that's helpful too.
Great, awesome.
Okay. All right, and then Commissioner Sauceda Guzman, and then we'll move to questions from the public.
You forgot about me. I think you forgot about
Commissioner Moore,
I
you
sure
go.
did.
You Commissioner Moore, go ask your question.
Moore
You
was
had your
next
little
on
hand
the
up
list. You were next on the list, madam. So you go ahead, ladies first.
Thank
And then we'll to Commissioner Sauceda Guzman.
So, Mr. Baker, I have 3 questions and a comment. And I'll ask all my questions and you can probably answer them 1, 2, 3, just to make it easier for the public to understand. My first question is, because you have the new traffic safety TSI process, does that replace the existing process that we have now in place with the traffic assessment documentation? Those 4 documents that we typically send in via email to DDOT, that system as for the 311 is replacing that, or is that in addition?
Thank you for clarifying that, Commissioner. Yes, it does replace it. So that no longer exists. The traffic safety assessment is no longer, and it is now the traffic safety investigation. That is the formal process moving forward. So I will also say that anything that has been opened under only traffic safety assessments may not transfer over to TSIs, if that makes sense. So unfortunately, for previous concerns, we may have to work with the community to get new service requests made for anything that has previously been done under the assessment.
Okay. My second question is, I do understand your response to Commissioner Cobb as far as there's no formal contesting of an existing ticket that would have been denied. However, if you have the engineers come out from DDOT and they are assessing this specific neighborhood, and they may come out at a time because what I understood from the process was they come out several times or they lay these strips down to analyze the neighborhood. Sometimes they're coming out when there's non-peak areas in the neighborhood. So when they are denying these requests, one, they don't give us as constituents the opportunity to have feedback before they deny these requests. They just deny these requests and tell us to re-enroll in the customer service system and 311. As a constituent, because I'm a constituent before I'm a commissioner, I just don't agree with the process, because if you've already been in the process of getting this workaround done or getting this work done, they didn't give you the opportunity and this is something that you could just take back to your management as concern. They don't give you the opportunity to contest or even ask the question as to why. They close it, and then you have to, as constituents, that we've already waited an additional period of maybe up to 3 to 6 months. Then we have to start the process all over again because they're denying it, which gives us an additional 130 days. That's 3 months and 1 week. So this process is becoming up to a year. When the constituents are frustrated because we're dealing with not just COVID, we're dealing with traffic concerns, we're dealing with the reluctant work efforts of the department. And I understand there's retention and whatever else can go on with these agencies. But I hope that you're new coming in, and I hope that, I know some things are not always going to fall good in your lap, right? You're probably adopting a lot of issues in our community. And I hope that you know, we as commissioners be as diligent as we need to with you trying to get these addressed. But I just want you to understand our frustration. When we come to you with frustration, just know this has been legacy issues way before your time. And we are just tired of saying the same thing over and over again and getting the same experience. The customer services has been disappointing and devastating at some points with DDOT. So I just want to make sure that, you know, you understand when we come to you and we're at the place where frustration has really set in, that you understand this has not been a 3-month, 130-day process for us. This has been now 9 months or up to 1 year. So that's I have other questions, but I know you'll address them as your presentation, or you've already addressed them. But I just wanted to make sure that I say that. And welcome to the team. We're going to try to be as diligent with you as possible, but I hope you understand where we're coming from.
Thank you, and I actually totally agree with you. I am, you know, a normal person outside of my job, and I have community issues in my neighborhood as well. So I deal outside of DDOT with, you know, the same thing as a local resident. What I will say is that I've went on site visits and had the engineers come out and look at the site at a different time that I've went out with the residents. And like you said, depending on the time of day or whatever it is, they don't witness what necessarily you witness, or even me as an employee at DDOT. And it's unfortunate. I can't totally speak for DDOT on this, but I think it definitely comes down to a lack of resources being able to engage with that. They don't have the capacity, I don't believe, to talk to every resident as engineers. We don't have like 1 million engineers at DDOT, you know, so they get assigned projects and then they schedule those projects around. That's why, fortunately enough, people like me get positions to kind of be the liaison between the community and DDOT, you know, work with the engineers to kind of be a voice for you all. But unfortunately, they just don't have the resources. It is definitely a negative cyclical cycle with, you know, them closing out a work order and then having to come back and follow up on the same issue later. But I think, as Commissioner Moore had mentioned earlier, what is very important is just to engage and follow up. If it's something that got closed out and you know for a fact that, you know, these things are revolving. Sometimes it's an opinion and sometimes it really is a safety issue, right? It really depends on the concern, but staying engaged on that whatever that problem or concern is, getting enough traction on it, it always will get put in the right hands. And sometimes that means that the director has to come in and just say, hey, give them what they want, even if the engineers don't find it to be the proper safety measure. It's unfortunate. Sometimes it kind of seems like politics, but I can only speak for myself. I'm definitely here and willing to work with you all. My phone number also will be attached from there. If you cannot reach anyone at DDOT or you just feel like the experience hasn't been pleasant, call me. I'm unlike a lot of engagement specialists, I actually typically will pick up my phone because I prefer really more verbal communication and follow up with email versus communicating verbally on email and kind of not really be abreast to what's going on if it's not detailed in the communication and email. So if, you know, you're having frustration or you're not feeling like you're being heard, feel free to call me or email and ask to have a phone conversation, and we can also take a different approach there.
Okay, and my last question before I end, for our current list in Ward 5 with the speed hump installations, do you have a timeline of where that stands, or is this going to start over with the process of the TSIs? Because we do have a current list that should have been installed by now, as you can hear, have not been installed yet.
A list that work orders that have not been completed, correct? So
they were definitely prior to the TSI.
But they were approved. But they were approved. Yes. So they don't go away. They don't go away. I'm not. I heard someone speaking.
I think it's just feedback.
Okay, but to answer your question, they don't go away. So if there was an installation date, which should have been provided to you when you know, they sent out the work order, or you could look it up online or ask me and send. I think Commissioner Moore said that they're very detailed in the list, so I'll take a look at those. If I don't see the installation dates on there, I can definitely update the tracker that you guys all have and get an installation date if the installation date has expired. A lot of that is due to COVID things going on right now. I can reach out to the assigned engineer and try to gain some kind of updated date on the concern. Typically they'll either let me know, hey, we're working on this, this will be done this month or something like that, but I can maybe add some kind of updated information if the installation date has passed.
Okay, so they're on that list. Thank you.
Okay.
Okay, and then just a note for everyone, you can check out, DDOT does have a tracker online. I don't love it because it doesn't show the various phases of a project all on one single map. But you can check each tab and see, whether it's submitted, approved, under construction, what have you. So that is on DDOT's website. Okay, we don't have time for all of these questions, but we're going to try to get to as many as we can in the next 5 minutes. John Healy, biking/pedestrian infrastructure is always a helpful topic of discussion. Perhaps Mr. Baker can discuss these items. So that might be a little bit vague for Mr. Baker, but if you just want to touch on any projects that might be going on in our area.
I wouldn't be able to off top touch on biking projects. If it's something specific, you guys are welcome to email me and I can follow up. But yeah, we have so many ongoing projects and ongoing service request work orders. I wouldn't know off top unless it's like a magnified issue. Yeah, I wouldn't know.
That makes sense. Just off the top of my head, I'll say we're having Transportation Committee meeting on Thursday. And that might be a good place to get some more detailed information. And I'm just going to kind of, push us along here for time. Cole Ingram, does a record exist of closed or completed TSI requests? It will be helpful to determine what DDOT has investigated already, something requested by a neighbor, and what the outcome was.
Yes. So to answer your question, the resident or constituent who actually submits the request gets all the email updates. So unfortunately, it doesn't go out to everyone in the community because DDOT doesn't have the contact information for everyone that maybe it will affect. But as you mentioned, Commissioner Moore, if you go to the actual dashboard on the DDOT website, you can type in the address or you can type in the service request if you have it, and it will show you what's closed in that that ward area and what's still open.
Okay, all right, thank you for that. And then Andrew Grinberg, what criteria does DDOT use to make determinations about whether to take action or not on a TSI?
Great question. It really is contingent on whatever the concern is. So that's specific to if you have a signals team and let's say there is a sign, let's say there's a light at a traffic stop that is skipping or something of that nature, that specific issue, they would do an assessment and they would do a timing measure for it. But it really just all depends. If it's typically, I think what is more common is speeding. That's typically concerns in local neighborhoods. So if they're going to recommend a resident may want an always stop control, 4 stop signs at each intersection. The engineer will go out to the site. They will monitor the site as Commissioner Latanya Moore I mentioned earlier, depending on the time of day, depending on if it's a local street or if it's a main street, they will, it's a multitude of different measures to be honest. If it's anything specific that you guys have a question about for an intersection, I personally can look it up and give you more information. I know a lot of times with always stop control, residents would like a 4-way, but we don't put them on main roads. They only can go on local roads. So certain things I don't think residents maybe are aware of, but we are always welcome to educate the resident on just regular traffic information that contributes to the flow of traffic in the city or in that neighborhood. Also, what I will say is if they do decline, typically from my experience, I've only been with DDOT for 2 months, if they decline a safety measure, and it's something that's pretty valid and that's subjective. They may say, hey, we're not going to put this, but we'll offer an alternative safety measure is what we reference it as. So if you want a four-way stop area and you can't do it based off the geographics of the area, DDOT may put out pedestrian flashing lights or something like that. So typically we try to give you some kind of alternative safety measure, even if it's not the one you're asking for.
Okay, all right, and we have time for just one more question. And I do want to go to the phone line because I know we haven't been able to pick up a lot of folks from the phone line. Dr. Burton, you're able to unmute yourself and ask a question. And just for interest of time, we have about 2 minutes left.
Yeah, I put it in the chat. My question is simply, do we need to contact 311 TSI if we want speed bumps? I think I mentioned it meeting before last. On Maryland Avenue is where many of us are concerned that we put speed bumps.
Great question. Yes, you do need to do a service request, a 311 service request. But I would encourage you when you do the service request, when you give the description of the location and what the problem is, focus more on the problem type, whatever the community's concern is, if that's speeding or whatever the safety issue is. A lot of times we do get TSI requests, and I don't think it's necessarily helpful to the engineers or even the resident to get across, getting something done. They more so describe what they want, the community's ask versus what the concern is. So
no, let me just say the concern. I'm sorry, I should have said that. The concern is heavy traffic speeding down, and the traffic of these four-wheel motorbikers speeding down so because we're on like a hill and then we slope down toward the Arboretum. And it just is really, really dangerous. And that is why people are concerned, because of people speeding down the avenue.
Thank you. So I thank you for that context. And I think that context provided in the traffic safety investigation is very helpful, so that the engineers know before even going to the intersection to do an observation, they know why the residents want them there.
Should I write something and send it to them, or just call and just state it as I've stated to you?
Yeah, when you do the traffic safety investigation, it's a form. So it'll prompt you for the information. So as long as you answer the questions, it'll prompt you on your address, it'll prompt you on your name, your email, your traffic safety concern. And it'll ask for detailed information regarding that intersection. So it'll prompt you on every step of the way. And once you submit it, it'll provide you with a service request number. And that'll be your tracking number. And that'll be the number that you will receive updates from DDOT internally that will update you on the process, whether they close it out. And if they close it out, what are the next steps? If they close it out, why they close it out. And if they're going to move forward with the work that needs to be done at that location. If they determine that, there are additional safety measures that need to take place, they will send you an email that says, hey, this service request has been closed. We are opening up a work order to do X, Y, and Z. That'll have the detailed information as to what DDOT is going to do to move forward with, getting some safety measures done at that location, wherever it is.
All right, I'm sorry to have to cut Q&A short. It seems like we had a lot of interest in DDOT tonight. Mr. Baker, I'll ask if you could please put your contact information in the chat, and then just share your email and phone number out with us so that people can get in touch with you, because there were a lot of questions we were not able to get to, unfortunately. But if you'll stick around in the chat and make sure that people can have your contact information, and then say out loud that email address again, so that people can get in touch with you.
Sure, thank you so much. I will. I just put it in the chat, and again, my email is dalando.baker@dc.gov. It is in the chat, but if you are on your cell phone and you can't see it, it is Dalando, DALANDO.Baker, BAKER @dc.gov.
Okay, all right. Well, thank you so much. And so sorry to everyone. We weren't able to get to all of those questions. We had quite a few. Next up, we have a PUD presentation. I don't see anyone on the line from 2229 M Street. But if you are on the line regarding that PUD, if you could just use the raise hand feature to raise your hand. I'm not seeing any names familiar to me with that project on the line. But again, if you'll use the raise hand feature to raise your hand.
Commissioner Moore, is that that's what's his Maurice Goodwin?
Yes, Marcus.
I said Marcus Goodwin. He wanted to be on this the February's ANC meeting.
Okay,
Now,
all right,
he
so we'll
changed
go
it.
ahead. Okay, that's fine. We'll go ahead and hold him for February.
Yeah, now he changed it.
Okay.
Time.
All right, thank you. Then that helps us stay on schedule because we were way behind. We do have 2 consent calendar items. An alley closure at 1728 Montello Avenue Northeast and traffic calming on Montello Avenue. Basically, the way the consent calendar works is that these are items that we group together, non-controversial items, so that we can vote on them and move forward in the agenda. I think if any commissioner objects to one of the items being on the consent calendar, then we can make it a voting action so that we can have discussion on the items. I think these are 2 fairly non-controversial items, but I am going to suggest in this instance that we move the traffic calming to a voting action, just because I think it will be helpful to get an overview from you, Commissioner Cobb, since there was so much interest in that topic this evening, like a lot of interest, just so that people, have that awareness. Any other changes or comments from commissioners? Okay, then as amended by myself, I move that we accept the consent calendar. Can I get a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Any opposed? Any objections? I'm sorry, abstentions. Okay, the ayes have it. And then so first up on our voting actions, if we could just get a brief overview from you, Commissioner Cobb, on the traffic calming on Montello Avenue Northeast and Trinidad Avenue.
Sure. So I know that for years we have been trying to get some sort of traffic calming to slow down all the cars and deal with the speeding issues on Montello Avenue and Trinidad Avenue. And for years, DDOT has told us that there's nothing that they can do because they don't want to slow down the buses. I'm the chair of our transportation committee, and we've been working with DDOT, and recently they voiced that they would be willing to put in some infrastructure as long as it did not have to slow down the buses, as long as it did not force them to slow down, like speed bumps or stop signs might do. So we looked at what sort of infrastructure would meet those criteria, and it really just came down to 2 things. 1, bulb outs, and 2, something called contraflow bike lanes. Bulb outs, you've probably seen them around DC. They're kind of just scattered all over. They're often concrete or sometimes just flex posts and paint. And what they do is they increase the size of the intersection at the corners so that pedestrians have a shorter distance to walk across the street. So it makes it safer for them. And then the other thing called contraflow bike lanes, it's really just a double yellow line painted on the ground. We have them on G Street and I Street Northeast, just south of Florida Avenue, and they don't take any parking there, no flex posts, no nothing. It's just a line of paint. But what it does is it creates an image of the road being narrower than it actually is. And by doing so, it can slow down cars as well. So these are just 2 imperfect but available measures to try to counteract the speeding on those 2 roads.
Okay, and thank you for that. And just really quickly, as a housekeeping item, Mr. Baker, if you're still on, I believe you shared your contact information only with the host and panelists. So if you could make sure to reshare that contact information with everyone in the chat, I think that would be helpful.
Okay, my apologies. I'll do that now.
Because I knew I could see it, but I think that's the issue there.
I didn't realize it just said host and panel. See, I'll share it with everyone. Thanks.
Okay. All right. And any comments or questions from commissioners regarding this voting item? Commissioner Hoffman, I see your hand.
Not to prolong this, I fully support this letter, obviously. I would love to see just additionally, Stephen, the resolution that we passed in either May or April, I can't remember exactly which month it was, but the infrastructure that we had supported on Morse, Oates, and Neal on both Montello and Trinidad essentially is what we're talking about in this letter. So I think it would behoove us to mention that we have already passed a resolution in support of this type of infrastructure on those streets exactly. And then we're just kind of building on that because I know Morse and Montello is still not completed. It's scheduled and approved and passed and DDOT confirmed construction for that. So if we could just include that in there, okay?
Yeah, I think that's a good idea.
Okay. All right, thank you for that. So I move to accept. Did we have any questions? Oh, okay. No, I do see we have a question from the public. Clarence Lee, excuse me, the speeding buses are part of the problem, especially when there is no one at the bus stop. Okay, and then
Sure.
are stop signs totally out of the question?
I think at this point, we have asked DDOT many times over the years for stop signs, and every single time they have said no. So I can't say that, just as an ANC, I can't say that they're out of the question, but I can say that I don't really have any hope for them in the future. And as far as the speeding buses go, I agree they are a problem, especially when they speed past an empty bus stop. But this is when DDOT says they don't want to slow the buses, it's more like they don't want to do anything that would jeopardize their schedule. But of course, if the buses are speeding, then they won't be on schedule. So this would also have the same effect on buses and making the road seem narrower and decreasing how long pedestrians have to walk to get across the streets.
All right, and then we have someone on the line with a question, phone number ending 536. And you can unmute yourself. If you're having trouble, use *6. Okay.
Hi.
Go for it. And if you could tell us your name.
My name is Gwen Rucker. I'm calling from Mother Rucker Sub. Hello.
Hello.
So I have a question about the infrastructure for Bladensburg Road. As you guys know, I guess Jimmy Valentine's and some of the local corner stores have always been just your local businesses on the street. But in terms of rush hour, we have at 4 o'clock, it's effective rush hour for Bladensburg Road. And what we're facing is customers coming in, getting sandwiches. And obviously the neighborhood is, people are moving their cars, as we're starting to get tickets. Customers are getting $100 tickets if they're in here buying $15 and worth of stuff while, and this, this parking enforcement officer is very adamant. Like she's like around the corner, like she's like hanging out, staking out the place because she knows that we have customers. And so, in the past, we've had great relationships with the parking community. And this lady is just like, I got a ticket and it was $413 and I got a $100 ticket today. This is my second one. And I'm like, I'm more concerned about the customers. So I'm like trying to get the customers out. So, I mean, I'm just trying to figure out, how does that play into businesses being on Bladensburg Road?
Sure. So right now we're on Montello Avenue and Trinidad Avenue as the topic. But what we can do is in a bit, we'll circle back to community feedback after a few more voting items. And then we can have a discussion of that topic. But I want to keep us focused on the current topic right now, which is the this voting item on Montello and Trinidad Avenue, because I don't want people to be confused. So let's see what else we have in terms of questions. John Healy, why not install a speed bump at the bus stops when buses should be slowing down anyway? And so I think that's a great question for DDOT, but I think Commissioner Cobb has really answered that one to the best of his ability, which is something that he supported, but we weren't able to get that solution. So he's presenting this as an alternative solution. Okay, so we can move forward and then we'll come back to Bladensburg Road after our voting actions. Let's first off have a motion to accept this letter with the friendly amendment from Commissioner Hoffman. Well, actually the proper way to do it is to vote on the amendment, but we'll call it a friendly amendment so we can move forward in the interest of time. Can I get a second?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Any abstentions? All right, thank you for that. And then next up on our agenda, we have, I don't see Mana Rabi on the line, but if you are here to present regarding 1961 H Street, if you could use the raise hand feature to raise your hand so that we can have you present. Okay, going once. I'm not seeing you on the line. Okay, so we'll go ahead and move forward in the agenda. The last voting item we have for tonight is hiring. And this is basically a little bit of intelligent finance work and housekeeping on our part. Basically, we have an architectural design professional that we're already using because he works for our zoning and land use attorney. And rather than going through her and being billed a quarter of an hour to contact him regarding zoning and land use issues, we'd like to make a direct hire, just for that little bit of a cost savings. Excuse me. And you can see the outlay there. So that would be in addition to our our annual budget. I highly doubt that we get anywhere near that amount of hours, but we do want to have someone who's available to answer those kinds of questions, especially since a lot of the onus falls on neighbors when there's development. We want to make sure that our committee has the correct information so that they can be as helpful to the community as possible. And having someone like that on our staff really kind of helps alleviate some of the burden, which is really unfair because the neighbors aren't making any money off of development going on next door to them. So it's unfair for them to have to spend, thousands to go out and do that. And so we want to be able to improve the resources that we're already offering to neighbors, to have a review conducted of various zoning and development projects in the community. So I move that we hire Mr. Guillermo Rueda as our architectural design professional as an independent contractor, all telework, for a contract not to exceed $8,000 a year or 40 hours of work at the rate of $200 an hour, which is a discounted rate for ANC work, which he is very passionate about and has done a good job for us. So all in favor of hiring Mr. Rueda? I'm sorry, well, let me get a second first.
Second.
Okay, and then all in favor of hiring Mr. Rueda, can I get an aye?
Aye.
Okay, any nays? Any abstentions? Okay, the ayes have it, thank you so much. All right, and then now we'll circle back to Bladensburg Road, traffic and parking issues. And Ms. Rucker, we're gonna go ahead and unmute you now so that we can get back to that issue that you were describing and you're able to talk and share with us. We did hear the issue, and then Commissioner Cobb, you are our Transportation Committee Co-Chair. So if you have any comments or have made a note of that issue and just want to share, feel free.
This issue is new to me, so I thank you for bringing that up, Ms. Rucker. I have taken a note of it, and I'll see if there's anything that we can do. This may not help right now, but DDOT is actually about to embark on a major overhaul of Bladensburg Road from the Starburst to Eastern Avenue. And it's very preliminary right now. The website should go live next month and community engagement will start in the spring. But in the next year, maybe two, Bladensburg Road may look a little bit different and those restrictions may no longer be an issue. But I'll look into what we can do for now.
Yeah, I was wondering, like, would you think maybe reaching out to the supervisor of the parking be something that we can bring it to their attention? And I'm not sure, like, if I should do that but in general, like, I've had customers like get $100 tickets.
Yeah, I mean, I'll say this from my perspective, and any of the other commissioners who represent Bladensburg. I don't represent your area, but I'll just as a chairperson have a comment. I think in my experience, and for obvious reasons, parking enforcement is not going to announce that they're not going to enforce their own laws around parking. And so I think that in terms of whether the level of enforcement we're seeing, I've noticed an uptick as well, but I don't think that they're likely to say, well, we know that there's illegal parking. We just will leave you guys alone in this little spot. I think what's more likely is to find a way to, have a drop off and pick up zone. And other solutions like that we've seen in front of businesses and in business districts, rather than kind of encouraging people to do illegal parking or block Bladensburg Road, with the jumping out in the lane of traffic and that kind of thing. So I think that they'll do that as kind of a way to balance that out and show respect for everyone involved. Any other comments from commissioners on that? Okay, all right. If you are a member of the public, now is the open mic portion of the meeting. If you have questions or comments on any topic that we didn't cover tonight, and you want to bring up an issue, ask a question, now's your time. Please use the Q&A box or use the raise hand feature. And you can do that on the phone as well by dialing *9. In order to raise your hand on the phone. Okay. And I'm not seeing anything popping up just yet, but I'll give folks just a moment to gather their thoughts. Okay, all right. I do see a hand raised. So we're going to you on the phone, caller ending 751. You can dial *6 to unmute yourself if you don't. All right, we can hear you. If you'll just tell us your name first. All right, caller ending 751.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Hi, okay, great. My name is Stacia. I live in 5D2, and I work for the Department of Health. So I heard some questions earlier that I can answer because I actually work on the COVID-19 response. So the first question was, who enforces the vaccine mandate at businesses? And within the Department of Health, that would be HRLA, which is Health Regulation and Licensing Administration. And external to DC Health would be DCRA, which is Department of Consumer and Regulatory Affairs. The second question that I heard that I can answer is, where can I get a rapid test? So if you go to coronavirus.dc.gov, in the red ribbon at the top, there's a testing tab. And if you hover over it and then click on rapid testing, or I believe it says test yourself express rapid antigen test, it lists per ward where rapid tests are available. And if you actually scroll down a little bit further, there's a live tracker that will tell you how many rapid tests are available that are left at each library. So for Ward 5, rapid tests are available at the Woodridge Library, which is actually a really popular location. So for example, today there were no tests left over, as opposed to some of the other libraries like Southwest Library that had 700 rapid tests left, or Capitol View Library that had 93 tests left. If you have any other coronavirus related questions, you can email coronavirus@dc.gov. And if you have test result questions, so if you took a PCR test at a DC public testing site, you can email testingresults@dc.gov.
Okay, well, thank you. That was so great. I really appreciate you raising your hand to share that with us. We got neighbors in high places, y'all.
Yeah,
So
you're
thanks so
welcome. Let me know if
much.
you have any other questions. Yeah.
Definitely. Okay, next up on the line, I believe we have Dr. Agwu. I think that's your number. And you can go ahead. Yep, you can go ahead and unmute yourself and share with us.
Or can you hear me all right?
Yes.
So I put it in the chat, but I just really wanted to make sure that everybody saw it, because we're going to send a formal invitation to the commission, but also just wanted the public to know there's been a lot of DDOT questions and concerns, bike lanes, everything. And Director Lott, because he was confirmed on a technicality, they didn't actually get to a vote. So Director is now the Director Lott, has agreed to a town hall with the public, spearheaded by the DC Coalition on Bike Lanes, on the bike plan. But it really is an opportunity for him to hear all of the concerns, and an opportunity for him to sit down. He's been very open to sitting down with us. And so I put in the chat, and I will share with the commission, and hopefully the commission can share with the public. That's going to be the 25th, in person and virtual. It will be limited to the number of people that are going to be in person in the room. But really, it's the goal to bring the public to him as he continues to try to reach across the divide. So just want to encourage people, if you have those issues, to come there, virtual or in person. We'll share with you, and if you can share with everybody, Commissioner Moore, and with love.
Okay. Very much appreciate it. And actually, if you'll shoot me an email, and I think you have my email address, then I can include that in the newsletter.
That would be great.
That'll go out to people. Okay, thank you for that. I really appreciate you sharing. Okay, all right. And then let's see, we've got one more question in the Q&A. And Mr. Keats, I saw your question or your reminder about the email you sent me earlier today, and I'll respond to you, but I'll respond via email. Azra Ahmad, hello, does DC provide any assistance to soundproof your condo? To my knowledge, I don't believe so. I know that was a big issue in Chinatown a few years back. I think typically that falls to the developer who develops your condo. And then sometimes if you have a problem after you've already purchased one of the condos, there should be a separate fund for issues like that. But a lot of times there's not enough money in those funds for something like soundproofing. So that can result in a lot of lawsuits and other issues regarding that issue. But we'll see if you can just let us know what single member district you're in, or what block, not what address you live on. We'll get you in touch with your commissioner and they can help you follow up on that issue. Okay, and then Skip Keats, this is a great question. Where does one access the newsletter? So the newsletter, you can access it on our website, anc5d.org. And at the very top right-hand corner, you can register yourself for our newsletter. We send out emails, we send out text messages. I mean, we're trying to catch you whatever way we can so that you can stay up to date on what's going on in the community. And then Mr. Ahmad, there are actually three commissioners that serve Carver-Langston, and maybe a fourth in the near future, depending on redistricting. So if you could let us know the block the block and street, we'll try to get you in touch with the right person. All right, and then I'll just check the phone lines again here. I don't see anyone on the phone lines. And Mr. Ahmad will give you an opportunity while we're giving single member district updates to share any information about that can help us find your commissioner. So let's go through single member district updates if you have them. 5D01.
I don't have any update right now this month.
Okay. All right, 5D02.
Hello, everyone. Commissioner Salvador Socheda Guzman here. Just a quick update on a project that myself and Commissioner Sabrina Rose are working on. We're looking at reestablishing a civic association that once existed in our SMD areas, Northern Trinidad and Ivy City. That will be the Mount Olive Civic Association. We're actually doing flyering for MLK Day of Service on Monday between 11 a.m. and 3 p.m. So if you're interested in coming out and
space recognition
and speaking with people interested in reestablishing, because this once existed, reestablishing the Civic Association, please reach out to me. At the same time, just to clarify, there are rapid tests obviously available in the city at our local libraries within specific wards. Just to clarify, you do need a DC government ID showing that you're a resident, or a statement showing your name and address, just to clarify that you are a resident in the district. I know a lot of personal constituents, monolingual Spanish speakers, were a little bit confused and out of luck on certain situations. But if you do have a PEPCO bill or any other bills that show that you live in DC, you are able to get that test, those rapid tests. And just like Stacia mentioned earlier, Southwest Library is actually one of the best ones to go to. I work about 10 minutes from there, and I was able to get one in and out, no line, no hassle. So that's what I have right now, but feel free to reach out to me if you have any questions or need anything, and looking forward to what we got going on this year.
You're muted.
Sorry, I'm muted, but you're next. So go for it, 5D03.
I don't have anything additional.
Okay, 5D04.
No updates for this month.
Okay. And then the only updates from me is that we continue to look into these issues that we're having with, trash and trash collection and different buildings not having trash collection. And so we were out on a walk with DPW today about this issue. And we're going to continue to stay on top of it and try to make sure that we get the service that we should be getting, because it really is exacerbating the issue that we're having with rats. In addition, we've had some success in terms of the ongoing illegal construction issues with 1835 H Street Northeast. Years long, even predating my time being on the commission since 2017, there's been illegal demolition, illegal construction, child labor, anything you can think of going on at this site. And so we've finally been able to get the city to revoke the business license of the developer that has been involved in this issue. They're currently also undergoing some additional investigations related to some tax and permit issues. And so hopefully we'll be able to bring a better resolution to this issue. Unfortunately for the neighbors who've had their homes damaged after a partial collapse at the site, they're going to have to take legal action in order to seek a remedy. But we're trying to move in the right direction to keep the rest of the community safe from these types of bad actors who are really endangering the lives of lots of people. So if you do see construction going on at the site, please, complain immediately. Call 911. If it looks dangerous, call 311. If it looks like there's some minor efforts that DCRA can address, and then please let me know. so that we can hold them accountable. But those are my primary updates. Let's hear from 5D06.
Not a ton to add. The snow that we got last week really took down a lot of trees in Trinidad. Most of them seem to have been dealt with, but if you still have any wires or cables or trees or whatever that hasn't been assessed and addressed, please send me an email at 5d06@anc.dc.gov. I know near where I live, we specifically had multiple trees go down, and it did take some time to get those fixed. Also, I'm getting a lot of emails and calls about mail delivery, and that is so far above our pay grade. The U.S. Postal Service is a federal agency. The council is aware of mail delivery issues. Congresswoman Norton's office is aware of mail delivery issues. This is not the first time that this has happened. Also, the Postal Service, for whatever reason, apparently is now laying off postal delivery workers. In the meantime, they don't have the capacity to deliver the mail in a timely manner or consistently or at all in some cases. So again, this is a Postmaster General issue that I don't necessarily know that at our level we can address properly. But I can tell you that anytime I see any kind of issues come along with that, I send that immediately to Congressmember Norton's inbox and our council member and mayor's office. And this is above our level, but I just want to let everybody know that if you have sent me an email about it or called me about it, I have passed it along, and hopefully that will be addressed soon.
Mm-hmm. All right, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And I encourage other people to call our Congresswoman as well, because the more people who are calling about this issue, the better. 5D07.
Just real quick, I will mention that our Transportation Committee meets this Thursday at 8 p.m. It will be a virtual meeting, and the way to access it's the same link as we use for our meetings here. So however you access this meeting, you can access our Transportation Committee meeting in the same way. And again, that's Thursday at 8 p.m. And just one last thing, I said it before, but I'll say it again. DDOT is in the process of considering a major re-envisioning and overhaul of Bladensburg Road Northeast. I don't have any information yet beyond that, but the website will go live next month, and DDOT will start engaging with the community in the spring. And so I will be sure to let people know what's going on there as it proceeds.
Thank you for that. And then just really quickly, some people have follow-up questions on the updates. Skip Keats, what area did the Civic Association cover? And I believe that's for you, Commissioner Salcedo Guzman.
Commissioner Rhodes, you can touch on it if you'd like, because you knew a little bit more of that history.
Well, Lewis Crowe had established a civic association between Trinidad and Ivy City. And this was in the early 1900s, late 1800s, early 1900s. And it went very well. They met at Bethesda Baptist Church. Bethesda Baptist Church is 100 years old, over 100 years old. So this is why we are working to establish another civic association. It went very well, but then it kind of it just fell off. And we just want to pick up that legacy.
And specifically in our areas, because I tried to establish one in all of Trinidad, but noticed that there was different interests based on the residents of Trinidad. So knowing that Northern Trinidad and Ivy City and other parts corresponding and adjacent to Mount Olivet all deal with very similar issues. So hopefully this civic association will be able to tackle some of them finally and bring the attention that they need.
And we all have the same, like Commissioner Salvador said, we all have the same issues. And if we do it together and fight it together, then we should be able to overcome any issues that our communities are experiencing.
Yeah.
Okay. All right. Thank you. And then this other question we have here, is, I believe, regarding 1835, and given all that's going on, what is the next steps with that property? It remains unsafe as is. And it does. So last month's meeting, our commission already voted to have the building condemned. So we've made that request of the city so that they will take the necessary steps to actually tear down what is there, because I think a lot of people have that concern. In the interim, DCRA did require that the developer add additional structural supports to what is remaining of the site, so that to lessen any safety risk, as it stands. And so they have undergone that process. The supports are in place. DCRA reviewed and said, hey, we're not impressed with what you've done here, and had them come back and add additional supports. And so that's pending a review, as we speak, for the additional supports. But that it looks like it will pass, and that should be completed by the end of this week. But we have requested condemnation as well. So thank you for that question. So that is all I have for us this evening. In light of all the updates and activities, I move that we adjourn tonight's meeting until February. Can I get a second?
Second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye. Commissioner Moore.
Yes.
Our ANC meeting for next month is on my birthday, so I might not be attending.
Well, with that, have a good time. Thanks so much, everyone.
Happy New Year,
I
everybody.
may and I may not, so.
Well, don't have too much fun. Good night.
Corona's still out there, so he'll be in the house.
All right. Good night and Happy New Year, everyone.
Happy New Year.
All right. Everybody